Imagine opening your phone one ordinary morning and seeing a notification that $1,000 just appeared in your bank account. Not from working extra hours, not from selling anything, but simply because you own pieces of businesses that decided to share their profits with you. This isn't some fantasy or get-rich-quick scheme. This is the reality of dividend investing, and the math behind achieving this goal is both simpler and more complex than most people realize. Before we go deeper, quick note if you're new here, on Tim Invests, I help you actually understand money, how it works in real life, without hype, so you can stop guessing, stop FOMOing, and start making calmer, smarter decisions with your cash. If that sounds like something you want more of in your life, consider subscribing so you don't lose this in your I'll watch later list. Now, here's the uncomfortable truth about earning $1,000 monthly in dividends. To get there, in most reasonable scenarios, you need so much money invested that you almost don't notice the $1,000 when it lands. And that single sentence already destroys a lot of the Instagram version of passive income. Most people either believe this kind of cash flow is impossible without being already rich, or they think it's as easy as picking the highest paying dividend stocks they can find. Both beliefs will keep you stuck and potentially cost you thousands of dollars in missed opportunities. Let's start with the fundamental concept that determines everything in dividend investing. Dividend yield is the percentage of your investment that companies pay back to you annually as dividends. Think of it like interest on a savings account, except instead of a boring bank paying you, actual businesses are sharing their profits because you own a piece of their success. But here's where things get tricky, and this trips up even experienced investors. Dividend yields aren't created equal, and chasing the highest numbers you can find is like being attracted to a clearance sale without asking why everything's marked down. Sometimes sky-high dividend yields signal serious problems with the underlying business. Picture two investment options sitting in front of you. The first offers a modest 3% dividend yield from a stable, established company. The second flashes a tempting 12% yield. Your instinct might scream, obviously take the 12% and make 4 times the money, but that 12% might exist for deeply uncomfortable reasons. When you see unusually high dividend yields, it often means one of two things is happening. Either the company's stock price has crashed because investors are worried about the business, making the yield appear artificially high, or the company is paying out more than it can actually sustain, which means those generous payments might vanish faster than donuts in an office break room. This is why experienced dividend investors typically focus on yields between roughly 0.5% and 5%. Yes, this sounds conservative compared to those flashy double-digit numbers, but remember, we're building sustainable wealth, not gambling on companies that might eliminate their dividends tomorrow. Now, let's examine the actual numbers you need to generate $12,000 annually, which equals $1,000 monthly in dividend income. The amount of money required varies dramatically based on which dividend yield you're targeting. To make this crystal clear, let's pin some rough numbers down on the table. At around 3% yield, think broad dividend ETF or solid blue chip dividend payers, you need about $400,000 invested to get roughly $12,000 per year in dividends. At around 1.5% yield, a total market index fund with low but steady dividends, you're looking at $800,000 invested to land at $12,000 per year. At around 0.5% yield, very growth-heavy portfolio with tiny dividends, you'd need something like $2.5 million to get that same $12,000 per year just from dividends. If you push into 4 to 5% territory, certain sectors, some REITs, some higher yield funds, you're closer to $240,000, $300,000 for that calls per year. But you're also taking on more specific risk. So when people say, I want $1,000 a month in dividends, what they're really saying is, I'm aiming for a portfolio big enough that $1,000 a year is just what drips out the side. Starting with the conservative end of that spectrum, imagine investing in a broad dividend-focused fund yielding around 3% annually. This type of investment holds stable, established companies that have been paying dividends for decades. We're talking about businesses like your local utility company or that massive retailer where everyone shops. These aren't the exciting stocks making headlines, but they're the ones that keep paying you month after month, year after year. With a 3% yield, you'd need approximately $400,000 invested to generate that $12,000 annually. I can practically hear some of you gasping at that number. $400,000 is more than many people's houses are worth. But before you click away and go back to doom scrolling, there's a twist. Dividend investing isn't just about immediate income. Many companies paying dividends also increase their payments over time. It's like receiving an automatic raise every year without asking your boss or enduring awkward performance reviews. Some companies have increased their dividends every single year for 20, 30, or even 50 consecutive years. Imagine if your salary increased automatically every year for your entire career. That's essentially what happens with quality dividend-paying businesses. Maybe you're thinking you don't want to wait decades to accumulate $400,000. There's a different approach that could get you to that $1,000 monthly target with significantly less money up front, though it comes with trade-offs. Growth investors take what's called a total return approach. They invest in companies paying smaller dividends but growing much faster over time. The catch is you'll need more patience and a different mindset about generating monthly income. Consider this scenario. Instead of investing in that 3% dividend fund, you put money into growth-focused investments yielding only 0.5% in dividends, but growing much faster in value. With this approach, you might technically need close to $2.5 million to generate $1,000 monthly in pure dividends, which sounds insane. But because these investments grow faster, you might reach your income goals sooner by occasionally selling small portions rather than relying solely on dividend payments. The beauty of traditional dividend investing lies in its simplicity. You buy the stocks, companies send you payments, and you sleep well knowing businesses are working to pay you. There's something deeply satisfying about earning money while literally doing nothing else. Then there's the middle ground, which might be the smartest approach for most people. What if you invested in something tracking the overall stock market? You'd get a mix of dividend income and growth potential, essentially splitting the difference between conservative dividend strategies and aggressive growth approaches. With this balanced method, targeting something like a 1.5% dividend yield, you'd need roughly $800,000 to generate your $1,000 monthly dividend income. Still substantial, but notably less than the growth-only approach, and you'd benefit from the market's historical tendency to increase in value over time. Now, let me tell you about some specialized approaches that could potentially get you to that $1,000 monthly target with even less money invested. But they come with unique risks and considerations we need to explore carefully. One popular strategy involves sector-specific investing, which is basically putting all your eggs in one industry basket and hoping that basket doesn't have holes. Energy companies, for example, often offer dividend yields around 4 to 5%, meaning you'd only need about $250,000 to $300,000 to hit that $1,000 monthly target. Sounds great, right? Well, ask anyone who invested heavily in oil and gas companies over recent years how that worked out. It's been a roller coaster that would make seasoned theme park enthusiasts queasy. The thing about sector investing is you're essentially betting on an entire industry. Sometimes you win big, sometimes you learn expensive lessons about diversification. Energy companies might pay generous dividends when oil prices are high and business is booming. But when market conditions shift, those dividends can disappear faster than your motivation to exercise after New Year's. Real estate investment trusts, or REITs, offer another interesting avenue. These are companies that own and operate income-producing real estate, and they're legally required to pay out most of their profits as dividends. It's like being a landlord without dealing with tenant calls about broken toilets at 2 a.m. Many REITs offer yields in the 4 to 6% range, which could get you to your $1,000 monthly goal with anywhere from $200,000 to $300,000 invested. But REITs get interesting and slightly complicated because they're sensitive to interest rate changes, economic conditions, and the overall health of real estate markets. When the economy is humming along nicely, REITs often perform beautifully. When things get rocky, they can test your patience and your stomach. Then there's the individual stock approach, which is where things get really interesting and potentially dangerous. This is like deciding to become your own fund manager, except you probably don't have a team of analysts and expensive research tools at your disposal. Some individual dividend-paying stocks offer yields of 6, 7, or even 8%, meaning you could theoretically reach that $1,000 monthly target with as little as $150,000 to $200,000 invested. Sounds tempting, doesn't it? But here's the reality check. When you're investing in individual stocks, you're putting all your faith in the management teams and business models of a handful of companies. Sometimes this works out spectacularly. Other times, you wake up one morning to discover your high-yielding dividend stock has decided to cut its dividend by 50% because the business isn't doing as well as everyone thought. I've seen investors chase high-yielding individual stocks like they're chasing the latest trendy restaurant everyone's talking about, only to end up disappointed when the experience doesn't live up to the hype. The appeal is obvious. Who wouldn't want to earn more money with less capital invested? But the risk becomes equally obvious once you start paying attention to what actually happens to companies paying unsustainable dividends. This brings us to a crucial concept most people completely overlook when dreaming about dividend income: the sustainability factor. It's not enough to find investments paying high dividends today. You need investments that can keep paying those dividends tomorrow, next year, and ideally for decades to come. Think about it this way. If you're planning to rely on dividend income, you're essentially entering a long-term relationship with these companies. Just like any relationship, you want partners who are reliable, stable, and likely to stick around for the long haul. You don't want to wake up one day finding they've run off with someone else, taking your monthly income with them. This is why many successful dividend investors focus on dividend aristocrats, companies that have increased their dividend payments for at least 25 consecutive years. These are the reliable veterans of the dividend world, steady, dependable, and probably not going to surprise you with dramatic personality changes. Companies like Coca-Cola, Procter & Gamble, and Johnson & Johnson have been paying and increasing dividends through recessions, market crashes, and various economic upheavals. But here's something that might surprise you about these ultra-reliable dividend payers. They often don't offer the highest yields. A company like Coca-Cola might only yield around 2.5% to 3%, which means you need roughly $400,000 invested to generate your $1,000 monthly income. But the trade-off is that this dividend income is about as reliable as gravity and tends to grow over time. Now let's talk about timing, because this is where dividend investing gets really interesting from a life planning perspective. The amount of money you need to generate $1,000 in monthly dividend income might seem overwhelming right now, but remember, you don't need to come up with this money all at once. Most successful dividend investors build their portfolios gradually over many years, taking advantage of something called dollar cost averaging. Instead of trying to scrape together $400,000 tomorrow, you might start by investing $500 or $1,000 monthly into dividend-paying investments. Over time, not only does your invested capital grow, but those dividends you're earning get reinvested to buy even more shares, which pay even more dividends, which buy even more shares. It's like a financial snowball effect, except instead of rolling downhill, it's rolling toward your financial independence. The beautiful thing about this approach is that it takes advantage of time and compound growth. Those early dividend payments might seem tiny, maybe $50 or $100 per month, but they're working around the clock to help you reach that $1,000 monthly target. It's the tortoise and hare story, except in this version, the tortoise wins and gets to retire comfortably. But we need to be honest about where this goal fits in your overall plan. $1,000 a month in dividends is not step one of your money journey. It's a mid to late game milestone. Step one is still boring but critical. Build an emergency fund. Clear high interest debt. Start investing regularly into broad, low-cost funds. The dividend milestone comes after those basics are in place, not instead of them. Now, back to reinvesting, because this is the lever that quietly changes everything. Here's where most people mess up their dividend investing strategy, and it's a mistake that can cost them thousands of dollars over time. They get so excited about receiving dividend payments that they spend them instead of reinvesting them. It's like planting a fruit tree and then eating all the seeds instead of planting them to grow more trees. When you reinvest those dividends, you're essentially telling your money to go make more money while you binge watch Netflix or debate strangers on the internet. It's the closest thing to actual magic that exists in the financial world. Yet most people treat it like an optional feature instead of the wealth-building superpower it actually Let me give you a reality check about what reinvesting dividends actually means for your journey to that $1,000 monthly target. Let's say you start with $50,000 invested in a 3% yielding fund. In the first year, you'll earn about $1,500 in dividends. Not exactly life-changing money, but here's where it gets interesting. If you reinvest those dividends instead of spending them on takeout and impulse purchases, you now own $51,500 worth of investments. The next year, your 3% yield is calculated on this larger amount, generating even more dividends to reinvest. This might sound like watching paint dry in terms of excitement, but the mathematics are absolutely ruthless in your favor. After 10 years of reinvesting dividends, that original $50,000 investment could be worth nearly $70,000, now generating over $2,000 annually in dividends. After 20 years, you're looking at close to $90,000 in total value, producing almost $2,700 per year in dividends. Remember, this assumes you never add another penny to your original investment. Now imagine combining this reinvestment strategy with regular monthly contributions. Suddenly, that seemingly impossible $400,000 target starts looking much more achievable. It's like compound interest decided to team up with dividend growth, and they're both working overtime to make you wealthier while you sleep. But here's something nobody talks about when fantasizing about dividend income: taxes. I know taxes are about as fun to discuss as root canal procedures, but ignoring them is like planning a road trip and forgetting you need gas money. Depending on where you hold your dividend-paying investments, the government might want its cut of your monthly $1,000. If you're holding these investments in a regular taxable account, those dividend payments are generally considered taxable income. Some dividends qualify for preferential tax treatment, meaning they're taxed at capital gains rates rather than ordinary income rates. But you still need to factor this into your calculations. $1,000 in gross dividend income might only leave you with $700 or $800 after taxes, which means you actually need to generate more, like $1,300 monthly, to net your target amount. This is where tax-advantaged accounts like IRAs and 401ks become your best friends. Inside these accounts, dividends can grow and compound without annual tax drag, which dramatically accelerates your journey to that monthly income target. The trade-off is you generally can't touch the money without penalties until you reach retirement age, which might not align with your dreams of early financial independence. Speaking of early financial independence, let's address the elephant in the room that nobody wants to discuss. Focusing solely on dividend income, especially early in your investing career, might actually slow down your wealth-building journey. Companies that pay high dividends are essentially taking money they could use to grow their business and handing it to you instead. Sometimes this makes perfect sense, especially for mature companies with limited growth opportunities. But for younger, faster-growing companies, those retained earnings could potentially generate much higher returns if reinvested back into the business. It's like choosing between a steady allowance and the potential to earn much more by helping grow the family business. This is why many financial experts suggest focusing on total return rather than just dividend income, especially when you're decades away from needing the money. Instead of requiring $400,000 to generate $12,000 annually in dividends, you might only need $200,000 invested in growth-focused investments. You'd achieve the same $12,000 per year by occasionally selling small portions of your holdings, and you'd likely reach that $200,000 target much faster than the $400,000 dividend-focused target. But I get it. There's something psychologically satisfying about receiving actual dividend payments that you can't get from watching your account balance grow. It feels more real, more tangible, like getting paid for doing absolutely nothing. And honestly, that psychological component shouldn't be completely dismissed. If receiving dividend payments keeps you motivated to stick with your investing plan, that emotional benefit might be worth more than the potential mathematical advantages of pure growth investing. Here's what this all means for your journey toward financial freedom. Whether you choose the conservative route requiring $400,000 for that reliable 3% yield, or you're willing to take on more risk with specialized sectors requiring less capital, multiple paths exist to reach your goal. The real question isn't whether you can build this passive income stream, but whether you're willing to start today instead of waiting for the perfect moment that never comes. Every successful dividend investor started with their first purchase, just like every dividend aristocrat company started with its first dividend payment. The path to generating $1,000 monthly in dividends is clearer than most people think, but it requires patience, consistency, and a willingness to think long-term. Whether you need $400,000 or you're comfortable with the risks of needing less through specialized approaches, the mathematics work in your favor if you're willing to let time and compound growth do their magic. Remember, those early dividend payments might seem insignificant, but they're the foundation of something much larger. Every dollar reinvested today becomes multiple dollars working for you tomorrow. Every month you delay starting is a month you're missing out on the power of time working in your favor. The dream of opening your phone to see $1,000 in passive income deposited into your account isn't just possible. It's a realistic mid to long-term goal if you treat it like a plan instead of a fantasy. The companies are out there, ready to share their profits with you. The only question remaining is whether you're ready to become their partner and give your money a real job.